Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to make a Flipping Awesome card with a tea theme. Hope you enjoy. So I started by die cutting this scalloped piece from the Flipping Awesome Die 4 times, and I laid these down horizontally so that I could plan my scene. And when I'm deciding where I want the stamps to go, I sometimes place them right on the paper just so that I have a rough idea of what I want my scene to look like. So I used some stamps from the Terrific Day stamp set, and I put them in order so there's a little bit of a tea party going on. So in the first square, I stamped the hedgehog facing to the right, and I put one of the teacups in her hand. And I didn't worry about masking this teacup. I just stamped it directly beside the hedgehog, and it looks like she's holding it. On the second square, I stamped the treats and the chick and the butterfly. The third square, I stamped the teapot, the cream, and the sugar, and I used one of those smoke trails. And on the last square, I stamped the fox and then put a little teacup in his hand. So if you're looking at it from left to right, you can see this cute little tea party. So I colored them in with my Copic markers, and then I used one of my darker colors to add a little bit of a floor on all the 4 images. And I think it's good that you have a consistent floor and sky when you have a little bit of a scene like this. Now to add the sky, I used a 00 marker and colored it in. And I actually ended up using 2 colors, a combination of blue and green, and I found that that was the best sky for the scene. Then I added some stickles on little accent pieces like the butterfly, the bow in the chick's hair, the hat and the bow tie on the fox, and then the hat on the hedgehog as well. So there's a little bit of sparkle. Then once I was happy with all the sparkle, I set these aside to dry completely. Meanwhile, I worked on my main mechanism pieces. So I cut 4 squares with some spiffy speckle paper, the yellow spiffy speckle, and I added a little bit of an edge with some scattered straw distress oxide. So you can see the difference that little bit of ink makes. And I put this on all 4 of the squares. Now I also die cut the main mechanism piece for Flipping Awesome with the same spiffy speckles paper. This is a 6x6 paper. And then for the outside of the card, I cut a piece of 5 3/4 inch paper from the flower market, and this is the 12 by 12 inch paper. So you can see the flowers are a little bit larger and perfect for the background. So I wanted the background on the long piece to be yellow instead of white. That's why I die cut this piece as well. And I'm just going to trim off the end so that I can glue that on top of the mechanism later on. And for the main background, I just used some speckled egg distress oxide and blended this around the outside. And by using a darker color around the outside of the card, it gives it a bit of a frame and helps to draw the eye in to the inside of the card. So on my main mechanism piece, I went ahead and folded on all the die cut lines, and I used my scoring tool just to reinforce these so that the mechanism would move nice and smoothly. And I just tested it out before putting all the paper on. Now to make sure the paper was nice and secure, I used a combination of double-sided tape and glue. So the first piece I attached completely, and the other pieces I just attached on that little area that's indicated by the embossed lines. And I found that using the combination of double-sided tape and glue made this mechanism a little bit stronger. Now I wanted the background to match the panels here, so that's why I die cut the large piece out of the yellow spiffy speckles as well. And once I attached that piece, I knew that it was going to be a little bit too long still, so I folded it along the fold line, and you could see it works better that way. So I just cut off that extra little bit there, and the mechanism works perfectly. So to secure it on the card, I just added some double-sided tape and glue on those tabs and then put it onto my card base. After giving it a few seconds to dry so that the glue would stick, I tested the mechanism to make sure it was working, and then I added on the seam pieces. So I started with the left-hand side with the hedgehog and then attach the other pieces. And I just attached these pieces with glue. And I just love the combination of the flower market paper and the turquoise color on my scene. It just works really well. Now on the last part of the mechanism, I wanted to have a sentiment. So I left this to dry and then worked on my sentiment. So for the inside, I'm going to put "Have a Terrific Day" with some teacups. And then for the outside, I die cut one of the banners from the Flippin Awesome set. And then I stamped "Sending You Positivity," which fits perfectly on there. And then I used black card behind both these sentiments. So I glued the main one on the top of the card. You could always use foam squares behind this if you prefer. And I went ahead and die cut the pull tab indicator and colored this with the same Copic color as the bottom. And then for my inside sentiment, I glued that inside. Now just be careful that you're not using very thick paper for this because you don't want it to jam the mechanism. You want it to be quite thin so that it goes underneath the mechanism easily. So I glued this background onto my main card base, which is 5 3/4 inches squared. And then I went ahead and stamped on the inside of the card, and I used the other critter from the Terrific Day stamp set that I haven't used yet. And then the sentiment, "You're my cup of tea." And then after stamping this, I thought it just needed a little teacup on the inside as well. Just gorgeous. Now you could leave the card like this if you like, but I felt like it was missing something. So I die cut the little tea bag and the little heart piece from the Stitched Teapot set. And I thought I could add these on to the front of the card as well. So using some Tattered Rose Distress Oxide, I colored in the tea bag. And then I used some Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide for the little heart. So then I found some embroidery thread that was a similar color to the background. And I put this through the tea bag and tied a couple knots to secure it into place. And then I cut off the excess embroidery thread. Then I glued the little heart onto the tea bag. Now for the other pieces of the end of the tea bag, I used my Distress Oxide in Picked Raspberry on them, and then I glued these two pieces together. Now I wanted this string on the tea bag to go into a certain place on my card. So what I did is I used some glue on my craft desk and pulled the string through the glue. And I did this twice so that the glue was really saturated on the string. And then once the string was covered in the glue, I gently placed it onto my card roughly where I wanted it to go. And I put a bit of glue on the back of the tea bag as well. And then on the very end of the string, I put the other end of the tea bag with the little heart cut out on it. And then to make sure this stays in place, once I'm happy with where it's placed, the string, I'm going to put a little acrylic block on top. And that way it will dry, sticking to the card. And now you can see the finished card with the little tea bags stuck on the top and the Flippin Awesome mechanism. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!